Right now, the latest on the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, the investigation, the tributes, and the outcry. Also, a new measles case confirmed in Fulton County. We'll take a look at the dangers and how you can stay protected. And one Georgia university is cracking down on a crime you've probably never thought about, but it's happening closer than you think. See how it's leading the charge to protect creatures, great and small. This is The Take. Hello and welcome. I'm Cheryl Preheim in for my friend Cheslie McNeil today. This is The Take, where we go beyond the headlines, look at why and how stories are impacting your community. Experts will share what they know. We always have a little fun too. We have a lot in store for you today, so let's get started. Federal agents raided the Hyundai battery plant under construction near Savannah. They detained nearly 500 workers, more than 300 of them South Korean nationals. U.S. officials say many lacked proper visas, but leaked documents now suggest some were here legally. Most of the workers have now been flown to South Korea. They were on a charter arranged from Atlanta to Seoul, those arrangements made out of Seoul. Others remained here in legal limbo. Hyundai insists the workers were not contractors, not direct employees, and they say it is now tightening oversight because of that. The raid has delayed the plant's launch by months. It sparked diplomatic friction, with South Korea warning future investments could be at risk here. With us this morning is Jong-won Lee. He is an Atlanta-based attorney who moved here from Korea 17 years ago. Thank you for the time today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
You were at the Hyundai site when the plant was first announced in 2022. Governor Kemp talked about this $5 billion plus investment and a key part of the state's economic development goals. So from then to now, what went through your mind when you saw the raid unfold 3 years later?
Yes, I just came back from Savannah and I met many of the Korean people in Savannah, and I observed their feeling, their response was fear, uncertainty, and confusion. One of the Korean workers was afraid, in fear, when he saw his friend and co-worker was arrested and treated like a criminal. And one Korean church leader told me whether his church would be the next target of the ICE raid. I saw the Korean parents who keep his children at home from school because of the fear of the ICE raid. Therefore, me and many Koreans are confused of our relationship between Korea and China. 3 years ago, Korea was welcomed as a good neighbor and business partner. Now, all of a sudden, we are treated like a criminal. So we need the answer, why this happened, what we should do next.
Talk about the confusion and the fear. The plant was once celebrated, as you mentioned, a bridge between Georgia and Korea. There was a lot of effort and diplomatic steps taken to bring the plant here. We talked about $5 billion, 8,100 jobs as well. Do you feel that the raid breaches that trust, and what would be the implication, in your opinion, moving forward?
Yes, some of our bond of trust, so it's broken. Yeah, because sorry, yeah. So, for instance, So we generally had a trust. We were welcomed as your neighbor, friend, and alliance. We believed we will accepted as your neighbor and friend when we work hard and make a job, pay tax, and launch new business. However, such trust is broken without any notice. If we are friends We have business partner, and we have made the error, misunderstanding on the visa. You just tell them, oh, you made a mistake, you need to correct this. That would be the relationship between business partner and friend. But all of a sudden, instead, treated like business partner and friend, many of Korean is now shackled and handcuffed and treated like a violent criminal. I want to make sure Korean people are not violent criminal. If they made some mistake on their visa paper, I don't want to lengthy argument about that, but I won. But they are not a violent criminal. They came here to open the new business and boost local economy. So I want the elected official or policymaker show up and stand up with Korean community after isolate. We need somebody to tell us, yeah, everything is okay. You are safe, and this is what you need to do next.
These companies are looking for highly specialized technical workers, and a lot of these workers were here because of that. And this leaked document suggesting at least one Korean worker had a valid visa. From a legal standpoint, how murky are the visa rules for these specialized technical workers that businesses are bringing in?
Yes, many of arrested Korean we came into the U.S. is the B1 visa, also called the temporary business purpose visa. So they are allowed to stay in U.S. for 6 months. So the Korean has no problem with the B1 visa. When we started the Gia plant in West Point, SK plant in Commerce, and Hanwha QCell plant in Cartersville. Again, we had no problem with the B1 visa. So there is a manual, immigration manual, that says the consulting or business meeting would be the proper purpose of the B1 visa. But we have the Korean programmer who installed the program on the computer at the plant. So who can say this is the qualified for the business purpose? Nobody know, nobody tell.
So much confusion around that. We really appreciate your time. Jungwon Lee, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You are watching The Take, and we'll be right back. The emotional and political fallout from the assassination of polarizing conservative activist Charlie Kirk continues, and investigators continue their work to understand what led to the shooting. Joining us now from Washington is NBC's Bofta Yimam, filling in for Alice Barr today. There have been many tributes already, including a vigil last night at the Kennedy Center. But there's even a larger one planned for, I understand, this coming weekend in Arizona.
Cheryl, that's right. Turning Point USA, the conservative organization Kirk co-founded, is now planning a massive memorial that's scheduled for this Sunday, as you mentioned, at Arizona State Farm Stadium. This event is being titled Building a Legacy, Remembering Charlie Kirk. That stadium, by the way, Cheryl, can seat 60,000 people. So naturally, they are preparing for this. We can safely assume that security right now, plans are being made, as that will be a top priority coming into this weekend.
No doubt, 60,000 people, and how do you protect an arena like that? Let's talk a little bit about the case here. We're hearing that the suspect in the shooting is not cooperating at this point with authorities.
From what we know right now, that's right. Utah's governor did not hold back. 22-year-old Tyler Robinson not cooperating. Investigators still piecing together information, mostly through forensics and, as you can imagine, interviews with loved ones, neighbors, friends, high school classmates. Conservative influencer Charlie Kirk, who was fatally shot last week, was critical, we know, of transgender people and trans rights. And Governor Cox says Robinson disliked Kirk and his viewpoints. He says the suspect's former roommate is, however, cooperating with investigators and noted that the two were in a relationship together. The governor adding the roommate had no idea about Robinson's possible plans. Now, state records show Robinson is not affiliated with a political party, nor did he vote in the two most recent general elections. Charges are expected to be filed tomorrow, and we do want to point out that that roommate, we are told by Utah's Governor Spencer Cox, did not know of the plans.
And is cooperating, unlike Robinson here. Since the assassination, there are growing reports of people being fired or receiving disciplinary action over online posts seen as celebrating his death. What are next steps with that, as there are some questions about free speech or what rights someone might have as an employee versus what an employer decides to do in something like this?
Right, a lot of folks this morning may be holding back on their thoughts because they're not sure what their boss or their colleague may think, right? And they don't want to speak up, whether they feel one way or another about what happened tragically last week. Now, many conservatives want his critics fired for what they deem as promoting hate speech or even lack of empathy about Kirk's assassination. This campaign has led to the firing or punishment of teachers, Cheryl, government workers, a TV pundit, and more. Just over the weekend, we have learned the Transportation Secretary posted that American Airlines grounded pilots who he said were celebrating Kirk's assassination. But we are learning literally morning by morning of more firings that are happening. And this is calling into question, as you mentioned, freedom of speech and what rights do employees have inside of the workplace.
All right, I know this will continue to unfold in the days to come. Bapta, thanks so much for the time. We have a lot more coming up for you. This is The Take. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Here's a story a lot of people talking about. Georgia's Department of Public Health recently confirmed a case of measles in an unvaccinated person in Fulton County. Joining us now to talk more about this and how you can stay protected is Emory Professor Dr. Jody Guest. Thanks for your time.
Absolutely. Good morning.
Let's start with how contagious is measles.
It's one of the most contagious things that we can have. 9 out of 10 people who are exposed to it, if they're unvaccinated, will end up with the measles.
So that would explain why the Department of Health was very quick to point out where this person had been when they were in that infectious period. We're talking about potentially spreading the virus for over a week at some busy places, college campuses, restaurants, even youth sports games. How do you even begin that process of tracking down everyone who may have been exposed during that window?
Yeah, this is a tremendously high number of people that have potential exposure. We're most concerned about those who are unvaccinated, but you start by knowing exactly where the person with measles was and what the hours were. Because some of the exposure was at a college campus, you can actually look at IDs and swipe cards about when people get in and out of buildings, but you need to put out big alerts and you need to make sure you are doing contact tracing. This is a massive undertaking for the Department of Public Health.
What does it tell us about our community's vaccination coverage when we see a measles case in an unvaccinated person? Talk about what level of concern you see and maybe the attention people should be giving this.
Well, what we know is that of all the cases of measles we've seen this year, 92% of them are in unvaccinated people. The vaccine works extremely well to protect people, and so we're most concerned about those who are too young to be vaccinated yet, or those who are not vaccinated. So first thing we want to do is make sure we talk about how great the vaccine is, but then we want to talk about anyone who could be exposed if they are unvaccinated. And as we see vaccination rates dropping in our state, we are going to continue to see cases bubbling up.
What vaccination rate do we need to maintain to have sort of that most comfortable situation?
Yeah, so what we really want to see is 95% of our kids vaccinated, and they get vaccinated twice when they are young, 12 to 15 months, and then a second vaccine second dose when they're 4 to 6 years. And 95% is where we want to be. In the state of Georgia, we are at 87%.
All right, let's just reiterate that. We are currently at 87%, and you say 95% would be ideal to keep everyone protected. What steps may hospitals and clinics maybe be taking to prepare for potential measles patients so that they're not creating exposure risks for others who are coming in and out of those buildings and offices?
That's such a great question. So alerts have gone out to all clinicians in the county and the state about a high risk of exposure for measles. And so clinicians are looking for people who are calling in with very, very high fever, rash, runny eyes, runny nose. So some pretty basic symptoms, but the rash is very indicative and the fever is extremely high. Really what we want patients who have these symptoms to do is actually call their clinician first rather than coming. But if a clinician sees a patient in this category, they're going to isolate them immediately.
Okay, and we saw some video of that rash a little bit ago, so that's a telltale sign. Keep an eye for that high fever as well. For parents or adults who perhaps might be unsure about a vaccination status, what's your most important message right now?
Well, so if you have a child who's not been vaccinated, now is the right time to make sure that they get vaccinated and to start that series. If you are an adult and you don't know about your vaccination history, it does not hurt to be vaccinated again, but you do want to talk to your clinician about it to make sure.
All right, that's a good point because I don't know that I remember everything from that many years ago. So really important points. Thanks so much for the insight, Dr. Jody Guest. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
All right, plenty more coming up for you. You are watching The Take. We'll be right back. This past week, you saw a lot of headlines regarding the nation's Federal Reserve. A federal judge blocked the White House's attempt to remove Fed Governor Lisa Cook, who's from Georgia, keeping her in place for now. It spotlighted questions about the bank's independence. And at the same time, new data shows inflation is creeping up to 2.9% in August, while job growth stalls and jobless claims surge. Those are signs the economy is cooling more than expected. And investors are already reacting. Mortgage rates saw their biggest drop in a year. Global markets are rallying ahead of the Fed's next meeting later this week. So a lot to talk about, a lot of noise swirling around the Fed. How much does that influence the decisions you make with your own budget? Here to help us make sense of it, as he does every Monday, financial expert Andrew Poulos. Always good to see you, Andrew.
Good to see you, Cheryl.
All right, let's start with that meeting. Is the Fed still able to focus on the economic numbers, or does all the political swirling around us risk distracting from that main mission?
Yeah, well, one would hope that the Fed will focus on the numbers and leave the politics out of it. Obviously, that's becoming more and more difficult for the Fed to do, whether we really want to accept that or not. It's becoming just a challenge with all the political drama and the theatrics going on. But really, the Fed's job is to be independent and make decisions based on numbers and based on the economics that they're seeing.
This is the question every time around. Is a rate cut coming? Do we expect a rate cut coming out of this meeting? If so, how much might that be?
Yeah, listen, this week, the Fed's meeting, I think the markets are expecting a rate cut. I'm expecting probably a quarter. I would be very surprised if we see a half-point rate cut. That would be an enormous step by the Fed. Also, I think that might spook the markets in a sense that they might feel things economically are worse than the Fed is letting on. So overall, a quarter-point cut. The more important thing is going to be to see what kind of future outlook Fed Chairman Powell gives us, meaning does he tell us we're going to have one rate cut or we're going to have 3 or 4 between now and the end of the year. That's what I'm looking for, is to see how many more rate cuts are we expecting between now and December.
All right, could it be the first of a couple more to come? What will that signal to the average person and to the families here in Metro Atlanta? How will they have to adjust finances based on the trends we're seeing and the decisions you think may come down the line?
Yeah, I mean, Cheryl, look, at the end of the day, if we start having rate cuts, that obviously is telling us that the Fed tightened for quite some time. Things are getting tougher economically. We can already see that with the jobs reports week after week and each month revisions. So I think the average consumer here in our state needs to be aware that the market is slowing down. Jobs are harder to come by. You need to prepare your finances accordingly and don't let the quarter point or multiple quarter point rate cuts excite you. That just means that we're probably looking at some difficult times ahead of us. How much, we don't know, but I'd prepare your budgets accordingly and not overspend.
All right, hold on for the long haul. Let's talk a little bit more about Lisa Cook. I mentioned she's from Georgia. That fight over her position is getting a lot of attention. Have we ever seen a president fight as hard like this over a governor? Who do you think could win this in the end?
Yeah, listen, this is unprecedented to have a president fighting to oust a Fed governor. We have not seen this. I think ultimately, Cheryl, this is going to end up in the Supreme Court. And if you and I were headed to Vegas, I'd let you bet on it. I'd sit on the sideline and watch the drama come out of this. It's going to be very interesting to see what comes out, but it's also just concerning because if we get to the point where a president can remove a Fed governor for what they deem unfit at any time, that takes away the independence that the Fed really is expected to have. Fed governors are appointed and they're there for 14 years. Unless they do something while they are Fed governor, it's very difficult to remove them from their position. So I just foresee this is going to end up at the Supreme Court. It's going to be very interesting to see what a conservative court's going to rule on this one.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. It's not just about this case, but the precedent and the independence of the Fed and why that's so important to the U.S. economy. At the end of the day, what's the single biggest way this Fed decision will hit families' wallets here in Georgia as we circle back to kind of that bigger view over mortgages, credit cards, or jobs, as you mentioned, at a time people are feeling it already and may need to tighten up more?
Yeah, I think, look, we're going to start, I'm almost certain, I'm not positive, and I could be wrong, but I think we're going to get a quarter-point cut this week. Again, we'll see how many rate cuts the Fed's going to give us between now and the end of the year. We have to prepare just for some difficult times. Might we see a mild recession? I think we're probably going to see some sort of recession at some point based on just all the jobs and everything we've seen. We need to prepare, be a little more maybe conservative with your spending, cut back. Just because we get rate cuts doesn't necessarily mean it's going to impact us directly in our wallet with much lower interest rates on credit cards. Mortgage rates are affected indirectly, not directly with rate cuts. So once again, if we get a quarter point, even if we get 3/4 point cuts between now and December, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to see mortgage rates drop 3/4 points or a point, right, directly. So while all of it has an impact on our finances as consumers, what the Fed does or doesn't do, ultimately it's up to us to just start budgeting and managing our finances and just expect some difficult times, probably the next 6 to 9 months out there.
Andrew, when you say mild recession or recession potentially on the horizon, I know that gets a lot of people paying attention, so we really appreciate the information as people navigate some tough times out there. We appreciate the time every Monday.
Absolutely.
All right.
Good to see you, Cheryl.
Good to see you too. You're watching The Take, and we'll be right back. Chances are most times you're scrolling on your phone or watching TV, you see the ads. Weight loss drugs are marketed as a game changer to help drop pounds. But 11Alive News Investigates found a surprising number of people are getting their GLP-1 doses wrong, and that is leading to a surge in calls to Georgia Poison Center. Our experts tell our consumer investigative reporter Liza Lucas that trend is not slowing down. Liza, just how big of a jump are we talking about?
Well, it's a significant one, and it's not just here in Georgia. It's definitely not a hard leap either, Cheryl, to realize the more people that are using these drugs, the more calls and questions are going to come in. The Georgia Poison Center started tracking these call numbers tied to GLP-1s just back in 2023. So this data is relatively new, but that year they had around 129 calls. I want to bring some of that data up for you now. The following year, that nearly doubled. Take a look here, 246 calls in 2024. And as of early this month for September, the center has already surpassed that with 254 calls. And experts say what really stands out when you look at this data is that the majority of these calls relate to some type of dosing error. Here's Gaylord Lopez, Executive Director of the Georgia Poison Center.
When you look at the data, nearly 75% of these calls that involve dosing errors involve people who are doing it on the very first dose. So these are people who maybe didn't get the proper education, who didn't get the right information from the internet health provider, or they were just confused when it came to how to deliver and how to administer these drugs. It has caused our call volume to skyrocket.
This is an interesting side effect here, right? And it's not just Georgia, Cheryl. Poison centers across the U.S. are seeing the bump up in calls as well.
It's interesting the point he made about the internet part of this, because I think in the beginning, those who were getting it were more likely to have the one-on-one with a doctor in person who might have been explaining more or showing the dosing. And now more people are accessing this through the internet. Is that one of the things that could be driving the increase here?
You've got it, Cheryl. Nail on the head right there. That is something he definitely suspects, because when you get the brand name versions, usually you are getting a pre-filled pen, so very easy to give that dose yourself. But what Lopez is seeing when he looks and analyzes these calls are people getting vials and syringes, and then you have to do some math yourself at home, and that's leading to some errors right there. Again, that is leading him to also think, as you mentioned, that people are going to alternate sources such as online. We know that there have been prior shortages, so simple Google, you can find a lot of different ways to get this drug right now. But as Lopez mentioned, sometimes that means you're missing out on critical education when it comes to dosing and what you need to do to take care of yourself.
Such a good point. Not just giving the shots yourself, but filling the syringe can be a difficult thing if you're not used to doing that. You know, that's
Exactly.
what medical professionals usually do.
Right.
So people are feeling enough to reach out to the Poison Center. What kinds of problems are patients experiencing here?
Well, gastric issues, no surprise there. We're talking about nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, but sometimes also heart rate issues, blood sugar changes. And we also learned when looking at the data with Lopez that around 40% of people are getting referred to the ER after this. So some significant calls here, and this is data that automatically goes into the national system. It's going to be analyzed on a national level as well. So these are important calls, and we want people to call when they have questions.
Sure.
But yeah, they're seeing significant side effects, usually even more acute than what they would normally see when taking the drugs.
That's really telling that many are going from that phone call to an emergency room. So really important information, Liza. Thanks so much.
For sure.
Remember, you can reach your local Poison Center anytime by calling 1-800-222-1222. And you can watch Liza's full report on 11Alive Plus right now, an important one to check out for sure. If you have questions about weight loss drugs, email us at weightlossdrugs@11alive.com. It's a story we will stay on top of for you. This past weekend, the King Center hosted the beloved Community International Expo. It's a free event celebrating culture, unity, and peace. And here to talk about the impact of that event is General Director of Interfaith, Sterling McCarthy. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
All right, talk about the impact of this awesome event.
Well, we are so thankful to be working with such a prestigious organization such as the King Center for this amazing event. The beloved Community Expo is something they do annually, so to be a part of this was extremely exciting. The interfaith dialogue comprised of some community leaders, of course, religious leaders, but ultimately coming together to build understanding on which we can have peace within our communities.
Talk about the timing of this. How do you see Dr. King's vision of the beloved community applying to the challenges that we're facing right now?
Absolutely. It is in a hectic atmosphere with everything going on in society and many of our communities. But this was just a chance to come together in solidarity and unity in the name of peace, ultimately being able to understand each other more, to put forth the effort to reach out and to become more unified in this effort to resolve things more peacefully.
You had a panel that was impactful. You brought together leaders from 6 different religions for people to see how that can play out, people who might look at things differently but still find common ground. Talk about the impact of that.
Absolutely. You know, at the core of all of these religions and traditions that came and shared, we want to really be able to focus and accentuate the similarities, the commonalities between them, not just focusing on the differences and the things that separate us, right? So being able to highlight those things that bring us together so that we can truly build those connections and those bridges in the communities.
And that's important on an individual level. So beyond the conversations at the event, what kind of takeaway would you have for people watching today, maybe they feel the chaos, but they don't know what they individually could do to take sort of those building of bridges back to their communities, their neighborhoods.
Right. This is, I think this was a great opportunity just to see that people want these types of events. They want these types of interactions and platforms. So it was really we're so grateful to be able to have this type of event, but we're also grateful to be able to move forward and understand the impact of these types of things in the community. So many people who want to implement these sort of programs or projects or discussions, it simply, I think, is a matter of reaching out and being more active, trying to find all of those organizations or those individuals who are trying to do these types of things. We are absolutely going to continue to do these types of things. We actually do these types of events multiple times monthly, whether online or in person. So it just really encourages us to want to continue to have that impact and outreach in our communities.
All right. Well, we really appreciate the insight and the time and the great work that you're doing out there. Thanks so much. Good to see you.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Sterling. Breaking news right now in the last few minutes involving TikTok. CNN's Maribel Aber joining us now from the NASDAQ market site in New York. Good morning.
Good morning, Cheryl. So breaking this morning, President Trump implied on Truth Social that the U.S. has reached a TikTok deal with China, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent confirmed a framework agreement is in place. The administration was facing a September 17th deadline to either divest TikTok's U.S. business or ban the app in America. Now, Trump says he'll speak with China's President Xi on Friday. Cheryl, in terms of how this is moving the market this morning, we're in a mixed board here. It looks like the Dow is down 21, NASDAQ up 133, the S&P up 24.
It's interesting that they could have landed on a deal here. This was one thing that actually bipartisan agreement on both sides of the aisle, concerned about potential problems with the China connection. So this is a big development.
It sure is.
Starlink goes dark. It leaves thousands scrambling for connection, but the outage struck the heart of a conflicts communications lifeline. Can you fill us in on that one?
Okay, Cheryl, when Elon Musk's Starlink satellite internet service went down briefly early this morning, it knocked nearly 50,000 users offline worldwide. That's according to downdetector.com. And it hit hard was Ukraine, which relies heavily on Starlink to operate its fleet of attack drones, was also affected. Today's outage is the second in 2 months impacting the war-torn country. A service has been restored this morning, but SpaceX, which operates Starlink, has not responded to a media request for comment. Cheryl.
All right, let's talk about Stellantis here. It pulled the plug on Ram's full electric pickup. Why shift gears here?
Okay, that fully EV truck is called the Ram 1500 REV, actually. It was slated for market in 2024. It's now being canceled altogether after several delays. So Stellantis points to, Cheryl, a sinking demand for full-size battery electric pickups as the primary reason. The Ram 1500 nameplate will be transferred to another EV truck, previously known as the Ram Charger. That vehicle runs on a range-extended powertrain slightly different than a full battery EV. It's projected to go on sale next year.
All right. Let's talk Facebook before we go. It's paying up on a huge settlement, but not everybody can cash in on it. So can you sort out for us who's eligible here?
So anyone who had an active Facebook account between May 2007 and December 2022 qualifies, Cheryl. If they signed on to take part in that $725 million privacy settlement 2 years ago. In a legal filing in 2023, Meta claimed about 18 million people were validated to get a payment. The deal stems from lawsuits over improper sharing of user data with third-party sources over a 15-year period. So if you opted in, watch for an email from the Facebook User Privacy Settlement Administrator. It will provide you a claim ID number, anticipated payment amount, and options to receive it. The maximum payout, though, will only be around $38 per person, with an average around $4. You know, Cheryl, a good little reminder, though, especially since we're all wary about these emails that look like they're trying to give us money.
That's a really good point. So we have 30 seconds left for anybody just joining us. If you could just hit the breaking news one more time with a potential TikTok deal.
Yes. So President Trump implied on Truth Social that the U.S. has reached a TikTok deal with China, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent confirmed a framework agreement is in place. The administration was facing a September 17 deadline to either divest TikTok's U.S. business or ban the app in America. Trump says he'll speak with China's President Xi on Friday, and that's what we know so far. Cheryl.
All right. Thanks, as always, for bringing us the latest. Thanks a lot.
You got it.
More coming up for you. This is The Take. We'll be right back. Clayton State University's Laker Wildlife Initiative is leading the charge to protect wildlife. And later this week, they're hosting a summit to train more people to detect, investigate, and prevent illegal wildlife trade. Joining us to talk more about it, the co-leader of the Laker Wildlife Initiative, Dr. Andrea Allen. Welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. So tell us about the summit and what you hope comes from it.
So this Wednesday and Thursday, we're hosting an inaugural summit called Where Forensics Meets the Wild, and I'm super excited about hosting this. We will have our partners from the Wildlife Forensic Academy who will be alongside us presenting. And what we're looking to do during this two-day summit is really to raise awareness, educate, and train attendees on all kinds of topics related to wildlife forensics. So the first day, what attendees can expect to see and hear are a variety of presentations, again, around a variety of topics on wildlife forensics. We got AI in there. We've got some veterinarian topics. We've got legal issues. We've got law enforcement. And then on Thursday, this is what I'm really excited about, we're doing workshops. And so this is where attendees get to do hands-on training. We'll have a veterinarian doing a wildlife necropsy, which is the animal version of a human autopsy.
Wow.
I'll be leading some outdoor wildlife crime scene investigations. And so again, it's meant to be a fun, exciting 2 days, but also full of lots of learning and experiential, hands-on knowledge gain. Yeah.
You mentioned investigations. This issue of wildlife crime, I think, might surprise some people. Maybe they don't realize the extent in which it happens and the impact to the world economy. I was reading it's up to $2 trillion a year.
Yes. So with all crime, it is very difficult to fully estimate its impact, but the ones that are out there are anywhere from $1 to $2 trillion. And it is a major global issue, and it's one that happens here stateside. We've got plenty of trafficking that goes on through Atlanta, with Atlanta being the world's busiest airport. We also have issues here in Georgia of poaching. For instance, I just saw a story yesterday about eastern box turtles that a package of 26 of them stuffed in socks were obtained. And so this is something that, again, it goes from one corner of the earth to the next.
I was just going to ask you what kind of crimes, but then you answered it. So it's like the smuggling of animals illegally into the United States or back and forth any place in the world.
Yes, and then there's also issues of simply poaching just for trophies. Here in the United States, people poach bears. They like to have the skins and the claws. Alligators for their feet, their skin for clothes. Snakes. It's really quite a varied topic. And the other thing, too, you mentioned earlier with its global impact. I mean, it's not just the impact of wildlife, but these things co-occur with other forms of organized crime like drug trafficking, weapon trafficking, and human trafficking for labor and sex.
A really important point, and we hear often about the international airport in context of those other crimes as well. So this is an important kind of spoke in that wheel when you talk about trying to stop the crime that's happening in and through our city at the world's busiest airport. What does it actually look like to train someone to fight wildlife crime? I'm so curious.
Oh, that's a great question. And it really will look different depending on where you are. For instance, if you're at a port of entry and near the ocean where shipping containers are coming through, that's going to look very different from, per se, if you are a TSA agent who is scanning someone's luggage. What you're looking for, the scope, the extent of what you're examining. This is also going to be different from, for instance, our Department of Natural Resource officers here in the state of Georgia who may go out to investigate someone who's illegally hunting. All of these are wildlife crimes. They're different. They're different in their nature, they're different in their quantity, and of course the response and how you train is going to be different. And that's why doing these types of trainings that we're doing at the summit this week is important, because you get to see and realize what a varied topic this is. And in order to fully and wholly address the issue, we need to have very targeted responses and targeted ways that we're training people.
And this conversation might even be sparking a career idea for someone who didn't realize this was a need, and maybe their interests would fill it perfectly.
Oh, absolutely. And that's something that I'm working on doing here at Clayton State that makes us unique, but also that allows us to impact in a positive way this global problem. And so something that we're doing here is we have courses that we are going to be teaching soon on how to investigate, again, wildlife crime. So having people putting on the PPE suits, going out to mock crime scenes, getting out there photographing, sketching, documenting, and collecting evidence. And this will also go beautifully with our study abroad program that we're looking to take students on to the Wildlife Forensic Academy in South Africa. And so it's really the opportunity to show students that, again, wildlife crime is this global problem. It's vast and it varies based on where you are. So here again in the United States, here in Georgia, maybe we're talking about eastern box turtles, but over in South Africa, it may be that rhino or the elephant that's being poached for its tusks. So
great to hear what's happening there at Clayton State University. Keep us posted, Dr. Allen. We can't wait to hear what's next.
Great, thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. More coming up for you on the other side of the break. This is The Take. Before we go, my final take. Let's start the week and end the show on a bright note, literally. When the news feels heavy around us, sparks of joy shine a little brighter. Check it out. And I know it's gonna be a lovely day. Ooh, the acoustics in the tunnel are epic there. That's the We Are the Community Choir filling the busy Beltline with harmony and hope. This choir empowers the music community and curates safe spaces, so their moving audience there loved it as they walked, jogged, or biked by. Beautiful weather as thousands of people enjoyed the Beltline and got this awesome surprise concert as they went. A lovely day for sure. In a time when the world feels divided, it was like a deep breath and a needed reminder that joy and unity have a place and it can be contagious. Hope you find some loveliness in your day ahead. Thanks for being here with us on The Take. We'll see you back here tomorrow.